9, where we talk about the coordinate plane. So we're going to look at, so the first concept is the distance between 2 points. So if you have 2 points right there, the distance between them is the square root of d minus b squared. So that's the difference in the y coordinates plus the difference in the x coordinates, like that. Now this comes from, this formula right here comes from the Pythagorean theorem. So just to give you an illustration, so let's say we have 2 points, and let's say if this point is, let's say this point is AB. Okay, so that means that this is A and that's B. And if this is CD, then that means that this is C and that's D. And if we draw a triangle, okay, so what we're interested in is the distance between those 2 points, right? The distance. And that, by the Pythagorean theorem, if we say this is A and this is B, and let's say, this is D. Now these are capital A and B and D. This is the hypotenuse. Then we know that D squared is A squared plus B squared. That's by the Pythagorean theorem for right triangles. And so we know D is the square root of A squared plus B squared. And A is this distance here, which in this case, it's B minus D, right? B minus D, which is the same as the negative of D minus B. But if you square it, then you get a positive number anyway. So in the end, this right here is just our A squared. And this right here, likewise, is going to be our B squared. So this is C minus A squared. Okay? So that's kind of where the distance, this is where the distance formula comes from. Okay, so now we are going to apply it to these points right here. So what you have to identify is where to put everything. And so you go 7 minus 1. So those are the y components. Okay, so you're looking at the y components for the A part. And then the x components are 10 and 2. So 10 minus 2 squared. Okay, and so that's going to be the square root of, this is 6, that's 36, and this is 8, which is 64. The square root of 100, whoa, it's just going to be 10. So 10 is going to be the answer right there. So that's the distance formula. And then for part B, the midpoint between them. So here is a line segment. The midpoint, if this is the midpoint, then if you look right here, it's actually the middle of the, as far as the y components are concerned, it's the middle of there. It's halfway between those two. And as far as the x components are concerned, it's halfway between these two. So halfway between these two would be the average of those two. And then halfway between these two would be the average of these two. Okay, so the coordinates are going to be A plus C over 2, comma, B plus D over 2. So you're basically taking, this is the average of the x components, A and C. This is the average of the y components, B and D. Okay, so then an actual problem, it's 9 plus 3 are the y components, and then 4 and 6 are the, I'm sorry, 9 and 3 are the x components, 4 and 6 are the y components. And let's just like 12 over 2, that's going to be 6, and this is going to be 10 over 2, that's 5. So 6, 5 is what goes in there. Okay, any questions about that so far? So this is two important concepts. Point midway, or the midpoint, and the distance. Those are two important concepts of coordinate plane. Okay, let's look at number 3. Now, the first component is x value, and the second component in an ordered pair is the y value. And to be on the graph of an equation, so let's say this is an equation right here, then the equation is satisfied when we replace x by 2 and y by 1. Okay, so that's 2 and that's 1, because this one is what you're going to replace with x with, and then this one is what you're going to replace the y with by replacing that. And if you make those replacements and it satisfies the equation, then it's on the graph. Okay, so number 3 is the point 2, 1 on the graph, on this graph. Okay, so what we do is we replace the y. This y gets replaced with a 1, and this x gets replaced with a 2. And when you do substitution, this is a good idea to put parentheses around it. Now, if you simplify this, this is going to be 2 on the left, and it's going to be 9 on the right. So this means no. Okay, so the answer there would be no, because 2 is not equal to 9. Okay, now we have some completing this table. We're going to put values in. So there's so when x is -2, what happens there is you replace this x with a -2, and that leads to 2y being equal to, so -2 plus 7 is 5, which leads to y being 5/2. Okay, so we can put 5/2 right there, and then the ordered pair will be -2, 5/2. Okay, this one, when x is, you're going to replace the x with a -1. That leads to 2y equals 6, which means y is 3. So 3, and then -1, 3. Then here, the x is going to be replaced with 0. So that leads to 2y equals 7, or y equals 7/2. So 7/2 would be the answer here, and then 0, 7/2 would be the answer there. And then continues the same way. Here we have 2y equals, if you put a 1 in here, you get 8. So y is 4. So 4, and then 1, 4. And then finally the last one, 2y equals, replacing with a 2, 2y equals 9. So y equals 9/2. So 9/2 and 2, 9/2. Okay, now the next part says to sketch the graph. And the important thing to do here is they've got tools that allow you to sketch graphs. Those tools generally are going to require whole number components. So for this last part, you're going to focus on this and this. Also, this is the equation of a line. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to Webassign really quick to show you how to do it over there, and we'll come back to here. But focus on these 2 points here, -1, 3 and 1, 4, because it requires 2 points to determine the equation of a line. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to Webassign just to show you how it's done over there. Okay, so here we are, Webassign. I've already entered the values here. So now we'll go ahead and graph them. And I said before that this is the equation of a line. Okay, so you come over here in the graphing tool. And this right here is a line tool. You can do array also, but just select this first one. So this should be highlighted in dark blue right there. Now for a line, all you need is 2 points. So let's go this point first. So you come up, it's -1, 3. So you come to -1 on the x, and then 3 on the y, and that's going to appear right there. Okay, so this right here is the point -1, 3. If you mouse over, it says -1, 3, which is that one. Then you want 1, 4. So 1 is right here, and then 4 is up here, so right there. And if you mouse over it, you kind of get 1, 4 in there. And I believe, let me think. I think that's going to do it for us. So when you put the second point in, it automatically drew that line there. I'm going to submit. It looks like they've changed the tool, so I'm not quite sure if this will accept this. Yeah, okay, it gave me the green check mark. Okay. Okay, so there you go. That's how you put it in. So let's go back over to the PDF document. And we've got the line in there. So let's go to number 4. Okay, so here we're talking about intercepts, X-intercept and Y-intercepts. Okay, so for X-intercepts, it's important to understand what they're all about first. X-intercepts, okay, so here's the x-axis. The y-axis is going to be like right here. An x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, right? And when it does that, notice that y is going to be 0. Okay, so y is 0 when that happens. So here we're going to set y equal to 0. We set y equal to 0 and solve for x. And whatever the x component is going to be the, so the x-intercept of this one, okay, this example right here, we're going to set y equal to 0. And that gives us x plus 4 equals 0. So setting y equal to 0 knocks that out completely. So x is -4. So that's going to just be -4. Now, some situations will require you to put in, you put it in as this, -4, 0. Okay, but this one, I think it's just going to accept the -4. Okay, now, the other one, okay, so for the y-intercept, what happens there is that's where it's going to cross the y-axis, okay? And notice that when that does that, x is 0, okay? And so what you're going to do is you're going to set x equal to 0 and then to solve for y. Okay, so then here, you're going to set the x equal to 0, like that. So y is going to be, this is 4, so that's y is going to be 2. Which also perhaps could be expressed as 0, 2. Okay, so that's the intercepts of graphs. And so let's move on to the next topic, which is circles. So here's the standard form of the equation of a circle. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. This circle has a center, hk, and the radius, r. Okay? Okay, so comparing this with this, we can see that h is 5 and k is 2. So that means that the center is going to be 5, 2. And the radius, okay, so r squared is 9. That means r is 3. Okay, so that's going to be answered there. Now, this part right here, if you were to go back and look at the distance formula, this is the square of the distance between xy and hk, okay? Or hk and xy, the other way around, maybe, might be better. Because you see, you get x minus, you get this one minus that one squared plus that one minus that one squared. Or that could be the other way around. It could be this minus this squared over the difference in exponents squared, x component squared. And then here, this is the radius is squared. So that's why this equation of the circle is that way. You can, remember this if you understand it very well. That's a good way to remember it if you understand it. If not, that's fine. You can just memorize this formula here. Or I will give it to you you can just write it in your notes if you take it on the exam. Okay, I'll let you use notes on the exam, by the way. Okay. Just for this semester. I don't usually do that, but we're doing remote learning, so I gotta do that. Okay, so let's go to the next one, unless there's any questions. If there are any questions, just please ask at any time. Or even you can just write something in the chat. Okay, so let's go to number 6. We're talking about symmetry. Okay, so let's look at the symmetry with respect to the x-axis. Okay, symmetric with respect to the x-axis. Okay, so here I'm going to give you an example of something that's symmetric with respect to the x-axis. Maybe a parabola that open up like that. Right? It's a reflection across the x-axis. So if we have a point here on here that's called AB, then this x coordinate is A, right? And then you have a point down here. This is also going to be A. This is the x component here is going to be A, but the y component is going to be negative B. Okay. Or if this point down here were AB, then up here it would be A negative B. Okay, so the answer here would be A, comma negative B is going to also be on the graph. Okay, let's look at the second one. Symmetric with respect to the y-axis. Okay, so here we have maybe something like, maybe we'll do something like that, okay? And that would be symmetric through the y-axis. And if we had a point here, AB, then that means that this is going to be B, and so this over here is going to be negative A, B. Okay, so that'll be the answer there, negative A, comma B. Okay, through the origin, that one is where you replace both of them. So negative A and replace both of them. And maybe an example of that would be, let's say you had something like this. Then you had a point right there. Symmetric through the origin means that if you go down like that, well, I didn't quite do this. I didn't quite draw this really good down here. Let me make a second attempt at that. Dang. There we go. Okay, so if you follow this point down through the origin and then keep going the same distance, so you make this distance the same as that distance, then you'll hit another point down here on the graph, like that. Okay, so that's an example of being symmetric to the origin. Okay. Symmetric about the origin. Okay, let's go to the next one. Sketch the points x, y, such that x is between -7 and 7. Okay, this is going to be a two-dimensional sketch. X equals -7 would be over here, would be this right here. So this is strictly less than right here. So you're going to draw a dotted line. And that's -7. And then over here at 7, you have another dotted line. And then it's everything in between. So it's going to be this infinite strip between -7 and 7. That'll be the answer. And let's see here. As far as it's the third one on your homework. Okay, and then this one, the absolute value of x is less than or equal to 4. Again, if you drop the absolute value signs, you get this. X is between -4 and 4. And so it's going to look like this one, except you're going to include these boundary lines. You're going to include the boundary lines. Okay, and that looks like the second one on the homework. Okay. Let's go on to number 8. So here we're going to plot the points, and we'll go to the Webassign to do that in a second. But first of all, let's find the distance between them. So recall that the distance is the square root of we can write it like this. So we can say x2 minus x1. This is a different form for writing the distance, plus the square root plus y2 minus y1 squared. And then you can identify everything. So x1, y1, and then this is x2, y2. Or just take the difference between the x components. So this one minus that one. So 10 minus 2 is actually 10 minus a negative is actually 10 plus 2. And then y2 minus y1, so that's 0 minus 5 with all that squared. Okay, so this is going to be 12 squared. 12 squared is 144, and 5 squared is 29. So you get the square root of 100 and no, not 29. 25. 5 squared is 25. How could I forget that? Okay, so 169. The square root of 169 is actually 13, so 13 should be the answer there. Okay, midpoint. Remember, midpoint is going to be the average of the x components. That's -2 plus 10 all over 2, and then 5 plus 0 all over 2. So 10 plus 2, that's 8. And then this is 5 halves. So, but 8 halves is actually 4, so you probably want to put 4. Or 5 halves. Okay, and that's the answer to that part. Okay, let's really quickly go and plot these 2 points in Webassign. I don't think you'll find any problem with it, but I want to just make sure that we're doing okay. Okay, so here we are right here. I put those answers there. Now notice that one thing that's really weird here is that they put the parentheses for you on a lot of this, so you only have to put the inside part. Okay, so plotting the points -2, 5, so negative come to -2. If you just leave it on this one, that will plot points. Wait. Oh dear, maybe it's this one. I don't remember. I'll try that. Let's try that one. Okay, so -2, 5. Oh, you're right there. Plot that point. And then 10, 0. You come out here to 10, and then 0 would be just on the line right there. Okay, so let's submit that. If it will let me, you can block me from submitting. Silly thing. Okay, good. So that's how you submit points. Okay, let's go back to the other document. Okay, so number 9. Okay, so here we're going to make a table, and then we're going to sketch the graph. Now, before, oh wait, okay, so they give us a bunch of x values, and we're supposed to figure out the y values. So when x is 3, or when x is -3, you plug in -3 for x over here, and that gives you 9 plus that gives you 11. Okay, so 11 is going to go in right there. And then when you plug in, so here if you have y equals x squared plus 2, so if you plug in a -2, that's 4 plus 2, that's going to be 6. So 6 is the answer there. And then if you plug in a -1, you're going to get 3. And you plug in a 0, you're going to get 2. Okay, and then likewise, if you plug in a 1, you're going to get 3. If you plug in a 2, you're going to get 6. And if you plug in a 3, you're going to get 11. Okay, so you get those different values there. Okay, let's go sketch the graph, and we'll do this on Webassign. But before we do that, I want to point out that this is a parabola. We'll study these a little bit more in detail. So parabolas, you've got is kind of like this: y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. That would be like the general form of a parabola that opens up or down. Not one that opens right or left. That's a little bit different. The square would be on the y instead of on the x. But this is the one that we're going to be dealing with the most. And the one that when you do graphing, that's the one that's going to pull up on the graph. Okay, this is a parabola. So that means, let me go to the Webassign really quick. Okay, let's see. I put the, oh, this is weird. Okay, so what happens is here, you're going to select this one. This is the parabola tool. Oh, you could select that one. This is, you could select the side one too. So you select that one, and then once you select it, this turns dark blue, see? This is outlined in dark blue. To plot the parabola, you're going to click 3 points. So I could choose any 3 of these points that are going to work. Let me choose the 0, 2. That's the easiest one. So 0 in the X component and 2 in the Y. So that puts us right there. Okay. So I've done that point. Let's go 1, 3. So 1 here and up to 3. That gets another point. Huh. I guess we only need those 2 points. So I guess we're fine. I guess it just filled it in. Okay, so for parabola, it just looks like you just need, well, let me put it this way. For parabola, I believe you need the vertex and another point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you need the vertex of the parabola. In this case, we kind of see that the vertex was 0, 2. So I do the vertex first, which is 0, 2 in this case. And then another point. I believe that's how that's going to work, because usually it takes 3 points to define a parabola. Okay. So let's go back to the document. Okay, so here we have number 10. X to the 4th plus y squared minus xy equals 16 is this red graph right here. And we're supposed to identify the X-intercepts and the Y-intercepts. Okay, so X-intercepts are going to be here and here where it crosses the x-axis. And so the coordinates, where the smaller x value, that's going to be -2, 0, and the larger one is going to be 2, 0, right here. And then you want the Y-intercepts, and that's going to be these 2 points here. So -0, -4 would be this point. Okay, I can label it. And this one's going to be 0, 4. Okay, let's look at number 11. Find the center and radius of the circle. So you'll recall that the equation of the circle is x minus h, that's an h, squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. The center is h comma k, so, and the radius is r. Okay, so in this case, h is actually -4. And in this case, k is actually 0. Okay, so the center is actually -4 comma 0. The radius, we know that this is the radius squared. We know r squared is 4. That means that the radius is 2. Okay, so -4, 0, and 2 are the answers to that part. And then sketching the graph, you come over to where the center is. It's -4, 0. So here's -4. Wait. Oops. -4 is the x component of the center, which is right here. Okay, then you come out, then you can go the radius in all directions. So from -4, you go 2 to the right, 2 to the left, 2 up, and 2 down. That sounds like a dance moves. Whoa. Okay, and then, You know, draw the circle around like that. Okay. And it looks like the third one is the answer on Webassign. Okay, let's go to number 12. Find an equation of a circle with center -1, 3. It passes through that point. Okay, so the center is actually not part of the circle. Okay, it's actually not. The circle consists of the points that are around all these points around here, right? Those are what consists of the circle. The center is a reference point, okay, for the circle. Okay, so here the center is -1, 3, and you want it to go through that point. Okay, so this is one of the points that it goes through. This is just the center. Now, a circle consists of all points that are equidistant from the center. So if we find the distance, if we find the distance, okay, so the radius of the circle will actually be the distance between these 2 points. Okay, this is a point on the circle, and so the radius is going to be the distance from the center to any point on the circle. That's going to be the radius. So that means if we just find the distance between those 2 points, then we'll find the radius. Okay, and so the distance is going to be, okay, so the -8 minus 3. I'm taking the y components, and then I'm taking -4 minus the -1. That's -4 plus 1, and squaring those. So here I get -11, but squared is going to be 121, and then here I get -3, but squared is going to be 9, equals the square root of 130. But so the radius is the square root of 130, but really when you're writing an equation of a circle, you want to put the radius squared, which is 130. Okay, so if this radius is the square root of 130, then the radius squared is 130. Okay, and then we can go ahead and write everything in. Recall the equation of a circle is this. So just substitute everything in. We know that the h is -1, and then k is 3, so that's going to be h plus 1, and then y minus 3, and then over here we have 130. Okay, so I'm just putting in the h and the k, and then r squared right there. Okay, and then finally, last problem. Show that this equation represents a circle, and then find the center and radius. Okay, so what you need to do here is something called completing the square. We'll go ahead and we'll rearrange this equation a little bit. I'm going to put a blank there. So I have the x squared and the 4x together, and then I have a blank for something else. And I'll explain that in a minute. And then I have y squared minus 8y, and then I have another blank. And then the 19, I'm going to go ahead and take that to the other side of the equation. And I'm going to have a couple more blanks here. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. What I'm trying to do with is I want to add some number here to make this a perfect square. But if I add it over here, then the other side of the equation will be like, hey, where's mine? If you're adding something there, you have to add something to me too. So I'll put it right here as well. So then the other side will be like, okay, fine, you're cool. And then I'll add something here to make this a perfect square. but I'll add it here too. Okay, and then once these are perfect squares, so a perfect square would be something, so the idea is I want this to look like this. Okay, I want it to look like that, or possibly or plus something, plus a negative h, or plus something. Okay, and so x squared minus 2h plus h squared. So here, this, okay, this right here, if I expand this out, if I multiply all this out, if the x minus h squared is x minus h times x minus h, if I do the FOIL method, I get x squared, and then I have the outside gives you minus h, the inside gives you another minus h, so that's minus 2h, and then the end I get h squared. Okay. So the key is this one right here is going to be, so you'll notice, let's see, how can I show this? Okay, so you'll notice here you have a minus 2h. So if you have a minus h, then it'll be a minus 2h. Okay, likewise, if I go x, let me take x plus a squared, for example. So that's x plus a times x plus a. So that's x squared plus 2ax plus a squared. Okay, so here I've got an a, and here I have 2a. Okay, so that means if I'm looking at like in these terms right here, that means that this piece will be 2 at 2. Okay, so let me I'm kind of thinking backwards here. If you have x plus a and you expand that, and then that's squared, so x plus 2 and that's squared, x plus a is squared. When I square that, I'm going to have x squared plus 2ax. If a is 2, then 2a will be 4. Okay, so if I just take this one and divide by 2, that's what I'm going to end up with in the end. Okay, you can like do this logic here. Okay, now if I expand this out, I'm going to get x squared plus 4x plus 4. So 4 is the number that I want to add there and here. And then when I do that, all of this becomes that. Perhaps this is not the easiest way to explain it. Maybe it was, who knows? Maybe it was the easiest way. Likewise over here, if I cut this, if I take this -8 and cut it in half, that's -4. Okay. But if I expand that out, I'm going to get a 16 right there, because 4 squared is 16. That means I have to add a 16 over here. Okay, and then, so if I take -19 plus 4 and 16, I get 1. Okay, another way that people commonly do it, and you've probably heard of before, would be to start with this number right here. Okay, that's a 4. Divide it by 2. And then square that, and that gives you a 4. And then that number goes here. Okay, let me repeat with this one. So I have a -8. I divide by 2, that gives you -4. Square -4, and that's a 16, and the 16 goes here. okay? But also goes over here, because we don't want to like get this side all ticked off and make us get it wrong. Okay, they'll punish us and make us get it wrong. Okay, so this is the equation of a circle, and the center is going to be the negative of this, which is -2, the negative of that, which is +4, and the radius is going to be the square root of that, which is just still going to be 1. Okay, so